Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Lazy Days podcast. How we doing, George?
I'm good, man. All good. How are you?
Not too bad, mate. Only me and you tonight. Matt and Jake have left us.
It's disappointing. It's fine.
Typical.
We'll move.
It's all right. We've got guests though, so we're good. We're good. We've got Tom Norris. How you doing, mate?
Hello. Pleasure to be here, guys. How you guys doing?
Good,
It's
mate.
good, mate. It's good.
Good.
It's weird hearing your voice and seeing you because I'm just used to listening to you on a podcast. So it's kind of it is weird watching.
Do you not watch the visual?
Voice.
We've got the visual podcast as well, mate. Have you not watched all
Yeah, I
that?
know. Well, I listen to him at work, so I'm there doing my own work and listening to about how someone's killed like 10 people.
Yeah, it's weird because I only know it from the visual side, really, because I don't listen to my own podcast. I think that'd be bizarre. But so I do the editing a lot of the time. So once I've edited it, that's all I've seen of it, really. So I don't watch them back because I've watched it a million times whilst editing it, so I'm sick of it. But yeah, a lot of people seem to be either audio or visual when they listen to it, which is cool. Or some people listen to it and then watch it, which is lovely for us.
I watch the Patreon ones because it's weird how Patreon works. Like you can't really do anything else on your phone.
Yeah,
so you've got to watch it.
Yeah, with Patreon we are looking into getting all of them as audio on there, but Patreon can be a bit fiddly and a bit odd, but yeah, we're looking to do that so when people are at work they don't have to be sneaky about it.
Yeah. Well, for the people that don't know really what we're talking about, do you want to describe yourself and who you are and what you do to those people?
Sure. So the podcast we were just talking about is I Could Murder a Podcast. The podcast has been going for nearly a year now. It's with me and my good pal Ben Carter, which we started it as a kind of we say lockdown project, but we were talking about doing a podcast way before that, but lockdown kind of gave us the time to kind of crack on and do it. So it was between doing a true crime podcast and we were flirting with the idea of a virtual reality podcast thing, sketch thing, because basically we liked one channel on YouTube. We were doing sketch comedy with VR headsets, which is very niche, and they smashed it, and it'd be very obvious that we were copying them. So we were like, I had the name I Could Murder a Podcast up my sleeve, and I was like, we should just do a true crime podcast because we've got the name.
Yeah. It's a great name.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. So we had the name. We were like, okay, we'll do that, and then I basically got into the YouTube world via Jaackmate. Used to be on his podcast back in the day. Used to do the radio show with Jack, and just been we're good mates for years now. And I just kind of wanted to have a project. Appeared on Happy Hour, and he kind of shouted us out a little bit on there, and that kind of helps bring some subs in and whatnot. And then since then we've kind of been growing and just doing covering true crime. I've got a little
nice.
There, go on.
It's fun, mate. Yeah, nice. We'll have a little bit more of a deep dive in that in a bit anyway. But on this channel, we have a question that we ask all of our guests, and it's one that splits. It's getting close now, actually. A certain option is only one behind, so you might swing it. What do you prefer, orange juice or apple juice?
Yes, I'm prepared for this because I was listening to the Robbie Knox one earlier, and I'm a strong apple juice guy.
Oh,
yes.
no.
Basically,
5-all?
Yeah, grew up on apple juice. It was the family drink, and I had a bit of a hiatus from apple juice for a while because I was a cider drinker, and that's the last thing you want when you're hungover is that. So orange juice just never really hit the spot. But recently it's grown on me a little bit, but my roots are apple juice, so I've got to stick with that. Went to Lisbon and they had peach juice as a breakfast option, and that was
peach juice.
It was amazing.
That sounds
but
like
that's
really good.
But it's not an option in this. You've asked me a clear question.
No.
And
yeah, it is orange juice or apple juice.
Apple juice. Apple juice.
We don't let any other juices in.
The cheap apple juice is fine. I don't need the Capella and stuff. It's just I'm happy with any apple juice.
That's a solid answer. No, that's fair.
So what's the scores now?
It'll be 5-all now.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. You've brought it back level. Orange juice was kind of running away with it, and then you've just kind of helped them nearly beat us
We
now.
need the help. We need all the help we can get. I appreciate that.
Anyway, right. So now that's cleared up. We've got. I mean, we're going to talk about the Euros. We've got to talk about the Euros. We're all big football fans here. You're a football fan, aren't you, Tom?
Yes, indeed.
You're a Newcastle fan, right?
I am, sadly, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Sadly. Yeah, been a bit of a rough patch for these last few years, right?
The last 10 years, yeah. That's been a long time. Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming we all watched the game last night.
Oh, yeah.
How do we think? How happy was we?
Yeah, Denmark, I was worried before the game because everyone had just written Denmark off immediately, and it's just the way the pundits were talking about it, like, just shut up, let's just see how, like, and so when they scored, you're kind of like, oh, here we go. But yeah, it was a very good, it was a good match. I didn't feel nervous when they scored, weirdly. I was like, I kind of felt confident, which is an odd thing.
I actually think we needed it. I actually think we needed to concede because we was looking
Definitely.
pretty shit the first half an hour.
Yeah,
So it was probably what we needed.
but yeah, I mean, I've got a soft spot for Italy, like for some reason, and I really don't know what to expect from that. I think if we went into the final, not conceding a single goal, no extra time, I'd have been like, oh, that's really like a good. So going into it, with not tired legs, so we didn't look tired by the end of the game. But yeah, it'd be what are you guys thinking for the final? What's your gut instinct or heart? What's your heart saying?
I mean, I've got to go England to win it. I mean, I've got to be confident. I've got to
is
have
that heart?
English arrogance.
That's the arrogance. Everyone's got the arrogance.
Yeah,
Online.
everyone's got the arrogance. You've got to have it. I think you've got to be.
I've realised how hated as a nation we are by looking at Twitter recently. It is disgusting.
Well, I'm a Chelsea fan, so I'm used to being hated as a football fan. So bring it on. That's all I can say.
Who do you support, George?
I'm Tottenham. So
Okay.
I'm kind of like, fans hate us because we think we're better than we are. So very much that kind of England fan culture.
I always found the Tottenham fans online, and I've got a lot of good mates of Tottenham fans. Tottenham fans online I've always found hard to deal with.
Oh,
I don't know why.
You see it. I'll scroll down my timeline, and like, then people will be talking about us being this gargantuan club or being this, oh, we're so good. And I'm like, lads, calm down. We've not won anything since 2008. It was a Carling Cup.
Yeah,
Like,
we're
not threatening anyone.
Yeah, there's always that's the thing with fan bases. You can't say everyone's in the same. I mean, there's a big thing about Newcastle online recently that they're petitioning today or trying to raise money to fly a plane over the final with a hashtag Newcastle takeover. That's like,
Oh, God.
what's that going to do? And it's just going to make everyone think we're like. Luckily, the rest of the fan base shut them down. But it's like if you listen to a little group of any fan base, the mugs, the melts.
Yeah. I do think you are owed a takeover, though.
Oh,
I think the fact that it was blocked is a disgrace. I don't understand.
I appreciate that, George. But
There's been so many failed ones.
yeah.
Do you think it'll actually happen?
Well, it seems to be. It's one of those things. The people looking to take us over, morally, I shouldn't be gunning for them to do it because they've got a very checkered past. But then if you look into a lot of other billionaires in the Premier League, it's just Simon Jordan, Talksport, just winds me up talking about it because he's just saying how the other billionaires, we know football doesn't work like that. We shouldn't have another billionaire enter in the league. It's like, why are you stopping just when Newcastle are going to get it? Why didn't we do that a while back? It's like, it's one of those where you kind of like, you go a bit like tunnel vision, put your blinkers on, go, yeah, just as long as you buy some players, that's what.
Yeah.
It's the Roman Abramovich thing where like,
Exactly.
his money, but then they look at the players he's buying and they go, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's smashed it though, ruthless.
Yeah, I love him. I'm very grateful for him.
bet.
Very grateful. I mean, I'm lucky. Like I grew up with him taking over basically because I can't really remember the first 4 years of my life, so I don't really remember old Chelsea. So I've just grown in with this new era of football. So very lucky to witness 2 Champions Leagues.
Yeah, all right, mate.
Lucky fan. Just rubbing it in there, George. So this podcast will be coming out Sunday. So that is final day. So we've got to lay some actual predictions on the table here.
Bloody hell.
Who do you actually want him to like? A lot of people are calling for Hendo to start. I've
I
seen.
saw that.
Last night was the
No,
first.
I'm
Last night was the first night I've ever wanted him to be on the pitch. At some point, I was like, we should bring Henderson. I was like, I don't know. I've never felt that before, but get him on.
My 11.
I was just
gonna say my 11 for the final is kind of controversial because I'd go for the the same as what we did against Germany, because I just think we look so defensively secure, and I think against that Italy team you just need to be sound. But for me, I'd want the same 7, so the back 3 and then the 2 wing backs and the middle 2 being the same. Henderson on at some point, but I kind of want Kane, Sterling. I kind of want Rashford because they're not that quick. These Italian centre backs, they're good, but I think Rashford could probably win us a couple fouls in the edge.
What about Saka though? He's rapid.
He is, but if you want one in the box who's going to finish for you, I think it's Rashford. I do, but we're so grateful. Like, we've got Rashford, Saka, Sancho, Grealish.
Yeah, it's mental that no one's putting Sancho in and stuff. Like, I'm as well. I'm not saying put him on, but it is crazy the depth that we've got, and we're like, But yeah, Sterling last night was amazing.
He's been unplayable.
Yeah,
fantastic.
loved it. But predictions wise, I think if Italy get an early goal, then we're fucked. I think, but I think we're gonna go into extra time. I think if we
penalties.
I don't know. I think if we go penalty. I think we go penalties, we lose because Donnarumma's just a madness. Last night, if we win the penalties, we'd have lost last night. I think.
I think so.
I think we'll win in extra time, 1-0. Which will be a rank game to watch. But
that'll be horrible.
Yeah,
that'll be horrible. George, what are you saying?
I'm just gonna dream. I'm going to go for the dream, and I'm just going to say it's 2-2 in the 88th minute, and John Stones leaps high, not free, and we win 3-2. In my mind, that would
I like that.
I'll dream.
I like that.
What's your prediction, Harry?
It's so hard. It is so hard. Oh, like my heart wants to say just like kind of 2-0 England in 90 minutes, but I just know it.
Go with your heart.
It's so hard.
Go with your heart.
Like, could it be another Germany game? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, screw it. I'm just going to say 2-0. Yeah, screw it. We're going.
I just think, though, Denmark, we drew 1-1. And, like, I know Denmark have been good, like, in this tournament. And some teams just fallen off a cliff. But Italy, I mean, against Italy, Spain, we're very fortunate.
Yeah. Spain looked a much better team.
But I just don't. Their defence, they are slow. Well, the centre backs are slow, and no one in the Italy team is beating Kyle Walker for pace as well, which is amazing. The great thing is I'm not going into it thinking, we've lost it, which in other tournaments you kind of are going into thinking, well, at least we got there. But that's the unbelievable thing, which is it's gonna be very exciting. But all of us have said England win, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've given 2 different examples of how we will lose if it happens, but in my heart, I'm saying we win in extra time. So we're all arrogant English. There you go. Strikes again.
I love
It's gotta be done.
Inject it. It has got to be done. We'll clip it if one of us is right, or we'll just totally ignore it if
someone else will clip it if we're wrong.
Right. Well, at least that's covered up. Let's hope we bloody win then. So going back to podcast days. You were originally on a podcast with Jack, right, called Fubar Radio?
So the Fubar Radio is the radio station. It's like an online radio thing. So it was me, Jaackmate, and producer Will. So William Brazer. He does a lot of things now with sport, and he's a presenter in his own right, and he gets a lot of things. So Will's amazing as well. Really good lad. But yeah, we Will sent Jack a copy and paste email asking if he wanted to do a show. Jack asked me if I wanted to go on it with him because I'm a videographer. I filmed some things for Jack. I filmed his music videos and things like that. So we kind of got on very well during that. He asked if I wanted to do it with him, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds sick." Because I've always been a big fan of podcasts. And then it went well. Some of it I think is like genuinely really funny. And even Robbie Knox made appearances on there. As a guest, he'd regularly just walk in and we'll have him on the show. So yeah, it was really good fun. And then that kind of eventually kind of withered away. And then did another little poddy with Jack after that. I've done a few projects with Jack, which kind of withered away as well. But but we had some great guests on the podcast, and that was really cool. And yeah.
Well, one of my questions kind of leading to the guest side of things is Ricky Gervais. I mean, you got to interview Ricky Gervais. That's mad.
That was mad. I was there, so I filmed Jack's first interview with Gervais,
Yeah.
And yeah, Jack blew that out of the water, and he was so, yeah, really that was he stepped up massively to that. And I was like, when we interviewed him, because Jack had already met him before, and Ricky was generally really nice, speaking to us beforehand, and he wasn't he had, because it was at the YouTube space, and he had to sign in, and the girl behind the counter kind of didn't really know who he was, made him do it. I was like, I'm just let him, he had to sign all these things. I was like, really? But he was really sweet about it, and he was just really nice and friendly, and he genuinely was asking questions. When someone asks you have a conversation with someone, they ask you questions, they're actually listening and interested.
Yeah.
He was like that. It's not just one of those just saying small talk and just getting through it. So yeah, having him on was great, and I didn't watch it back for a few years, because I was just really worried if I'd be a bit meltish on it, but I made him laugh a couple of times, so that's the kind of all I wanted, bucket list tip.
I think if you can make Ricky Gervais laugh, that's a bucket list achievement.
A joke about pork pie, I believe, but it was that's all. Yeah, so that was a huge thing having him on there. But yeah, that was a big pinch me moment, and that's a thing my family refer back to quite a lot. Well, tease me with your friend Ricky and stuff like that. No, I'm not a big fan of Afterlife, but there you go. That's fine.
Really?
Interesting.
Everyone loves it. I know that. We won't get into that.
Oh yeah, okay. I really enjoyed it.
I was actually, Sorry, I was just going to say, I was actually gutted when that podcast stopped, because I remember I really enjoyed those ones, because I remember the Josh Peters one and then the Cal Freezer one, because I was a big YouTube fan as well. So then and then obviously the Gervais one and all of that. I was like, this is a really good show, and then just one day, it never appeared in my sub box, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. It was really good. To be fair, at that stage, I wasn't too familiar with the YouTube world in terms of those characters as much.
Yeah.
I knew the kind of beef with Josh Peters and all that stuff, and I was quite happy to play the middleman and dig Jack out during that, make him feel uncomfortable. I think one of the reasons why it gave it away is me and Jack are quite similar in some aspects, where we both are quite snidey to each other. Right. Whereas it's if you look now, with him and Stevie, he'll be snidey to Stevie, and with Ben, I'm quite often snidey to Ben. So it's me and Jack did lots of projects. We both make each other laugh a lot. And yeah, the guests were great. They were really good. I think it was, as well, a lot of problems with the YouTube space, but we were given a green room, and then we would try and book a whole lot of it in a row, but you could only book a certain amount in a row, and it just started becoming a huge hassle with it. And even just getting camera people to do it. And this is the days when I think Jack was 200,000 subs. It wasn't the heavy heights he is now. But yeah, the guests were really good, and we had some really good guests on there. We had Dynamo, which was cool, and yeah, it's amazing to see, because Jack, even just seeing Jack from then to now, his interviewing skills and his presenting skills are just next level. He is leveled up hard. That's not slagging him off back then, but I remember him asking me questions whilst Dynamo was there. I was like, don't ask me questions. You got a magic man there.
Yeah, no. But Jack is quality. He's been a bit of an inspiration to this podcast, I think, for a lot of startup podcasts as well. I think he has been, which he's got to give him credit for. Yeah, he has massively.
I mean, he asked about meal deals, and we said apple juice, orange juice, so it's kind of
well, it's food related. That's fine. I mean, apple juice.
That was what Robbie Knox thought we was going to ask him about his bloody meal deal. It was like, no, it's not. You're not the meal deal.
Because I'm a veggie now, so meal deals are tricky anyway. Because you're basically going to smell bad because you got cheese and onion or egg mayo. So it's like,
Are you one of those veggies that eat fish?
No, that's a pescatarian.
Yeah, but some actual veggies say, "Oh, but I'll eat fish," and it's like,
yeah, but pescatarian sounds wankier than saying vegetarian, which because I was a pescatarian and I would say that, and I was like, I fucking hate myself for having to say I'm a pescatarian. So I was just like, I'm just gonna, because I wasn't eating that much fish. I wasn't going out of my way to eat fish. I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna be a vegetarian, which is very easy to do nowadays. But
there's a lot out there.
They're really nice. It's so good. I had corn chicken as a replacement for normal chicken. I was like, this is actually better.
I had a meatless meatball Mariano. I hate the fact they always have to doesn't make it sound good. Meatless meatball Mariana, but yeah, have one of those earlier. You can't taste the difference. It's like, but anyway, I'm not going preachy. Eat what you want. I don't give a shit. It's fine. But
Best way to be. Best way to be. So back to Could Murder a Podcast. What was I going to say? How hard is it researching all those stories? So it must be weird deep diving into all of them.
Yeah, it is and it isn't. Like, basically, when we first started, we didn't realise how much work it would be, definitely. And like, we got the animation made up even before we filmed the first episode, which, looking back, was a massive risk. Because we bought all the stuff, got the animation made up, we got the branding down, and it's like, let's try and see if it works. Because Ben hadn't been on camera or anything like that before. So I kind of didn't really think about that before we started. And the first episode we did, we filmed over a period of like 8 hours, which is mental.
Bloody hell.
But that's because we didn't know the structure of it, and we had to keep redoing bits and kind of... But so that first episode, I wouldn't want to watch that back, because the whole time I'm thinking, well, this was not going to go anywhere. So I was probably like, oh, what? But Ben's again come on leaps and bounds, and you can't tell in the first series he's not been on camera.
No.
He's got great voice for it as well. But like, we've kind of perfected our craft in a way. We've got our producer Dan involved, and he's making the audio sound a lot better, and he does the intros, and we've now got a little team, like a little team together. The research wise, Ben was dealing with the timelines, and then I would kind of be doing more the kind of research around the sides of it. It is a lot of work, but then when you get in the structures, you're fine, because you kind of know, okay, this is what we do here. At the beginning, we kind of were shooting around all over the place, but now at least we know where we're going. But when you're covering certain cases like Jimmy Savile, which spans over like, decades, your timeline could be 4 days long if you really wanted, but it's like, it's picking what's the necessary subjects to go into without trying to belittle the other things he did, because you can't list every person, so yeah, you're walking a tightrope, and then you lug in trying to be funny during it, and it makes it even more of a tightrope, because you're like, oh. But yeah, it's good. It is full on. Like, we're having a break currently, but we did 3 months solid of it, and you felt like you were doing it, because it's just like, and we tend to batch film because Ben lives up in Leeds currently, right. So we would film like 2 in a day, and 3 in a weekend, and that's a lot, because you kind of have to have all the information in your head and also written down for each case, and it's just like you know what YouTube's like. If you miss anything out or get anything wrong, people will let you know. Yeah. So like, we haven't had too many people pointing things out, but you get the odd person.
Of course.
Yeah.
Has there been one story that you've been looking into that you've kind of struggled with reading, and kind of it's been that bad that you've kind of been like, oh god?
There's ones where this seems to be. I keep bringing this up in things. I brought this up on the Patreon thing the other day. So Watkins and Savile, like, if you really wanted the nitty gritty transcripts, which are absolutely fucking gross, and like they go so in depth in terms of exactly what they did and tried to do. Like, I didn't bother deep diving into those. I mean, I've read them before, and I was like, it's not. We're not. I think we're not the place if you want to go. If you want to hear the hard cold facts, well, obviously they are.
Yeah.
But just facts. We are. Yeah. Somewhere for it's a bit light in places and a bit odd, and then we'll tell you things, and then things we find interesting and little tangents on, but we're not going to tell you step by step exactly what Ian Watkins tried to do to a kid. It's not that kind of podcast. There's other podcasts that do that, and like, completely fair play, but it just kind of feels a bit, I don't know, a bit too much, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think we're the gateway drug for true crime for some people, where maybe they don't want that really heavy side of it. If you do, you'd go somewhere like Case File, which is amazing, but really dry Australian guy who just tells you all these facts, and like, you learn. He's great, amazing voice, but he's not going to throw in a little joke about a shark and stuff in there, which if he did, it'd be very off-brand and it'd be weird. But it can be tricky, and a lot of people say, how do you guys like mentally cope with it? But it's like, you can separate yourself. Like if you're watching a true crime documentary, you separate yourself from it, and then like it can get a bit heavy. And yeah, it's just one of those things. True crime is an odd one, a really odd one, because some people are like, you're trying to monetize other people's suffering. It's like, well, that's not.
No.
It's just one of those things that forever people will find interesting.
Have you ever had backlash from like stuff like that, where people have said, "How dare you kind of monetize these killers?"
Not as such. I think because now it's not. It used to be quite niche, but it's not niche anymore. I think it's more a case of people saying, us joking around about how big Ian Huntley's shed was is belittling his crime, when it's like, well, it's not really, is it? Because we're not belittling the crime. We're just saying, well, the police didn't look at it and it's fucking massive. It's not a shed. So it was like, yeah, we're basically just two mates discussing it, and in some bits we find that's mental and go off a little tangent. It's like some people are like, oh, you shouldn't be making jokes. That was really inappropriate when you did an impression of this, and it's like, we are very, very careful about what we joke about. And if we do go too far, like if I'm editing, I'll send clips into the group chat, and like, this seems like it's borderline, and then we'll have a vote or whatever. And if we really need to go next level, I'll send it to show it to my missus or whatever, and it'll be like, yeah. But usually we know the mark. So yeah, some people have been like, yeah, that you guys have gone too far, and what the fuck is this shit? And it's like, or moaning about us waffling at the start. And it's like we usually get into it in the first like 10 minutes, which I've listened to other true crime ones where 25 minutes they're just talking about stuff like Conspiracy Guys, I think it's called. It's like weird, and people go skip to 5 minutes. It's like, what have you got to do today? Just chill out, mate. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's also a podcast. Like,
that's the point.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because like the whole idea, I think, of the podcast is if you don't buy into the presenters, then you're not going to listen to it. And it's like, so if people are like, I just want to know about the crime, there is about 45,000 other true crime podcasts which will tell you exactly what happened with very little talking. If you want to find it, you can find it.
You said, case files.
Yeah, exactly. Or So yeah, it's strange. I guess things like Jimmy Savile and Ian Watkins are two cases which haven't widely been covered. So that's where we mainly get those comments. But there you go.
Has there been? We briefly touched on it kind of before we started recording. How it's weird to say like favourites, but has there been a case that you've enjoyed kind of researching and found it really interesting?
Yeah, I think like because we've done a few Q&As, and it's who's your favourite serial killer? If you could be any serial killer, who would you?
So weird.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I get people who say like their favourite case because it's interesting.
Yeah.
They just say most interesting case. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think researching wise, the Joseph Fritzl one I found really interesting, just because there's certain elements to it which I didn't really. That's one I really remember growing up, and I was like, yeah, some elements of how they lived and the day-to-day and how he was caught. I didn't know anything about that because I just kind of knew the basic story. Even with Anders Breivik as well, to be fair, I didn't know a lot about that. I didn't know the explosion that he caused was so big and vast. Yeah. Those ones were really like, okay, that's. And then there's ones where you just kind of research and you're like, how were they able to carry on for so long without being stopped? As in, like, there were red flags all along, and like Catherine Knight recovered in the latest series, she did a lot of things which leaving a baby on the railway tracks, and then
the person who boiled the head, right?
Yeah, and it's like, how was she not properly stopped in these things? It's like she just carried on. It's like, no, that's how Catherine is. It's like, yeah, so yeah, all of them obviously, because we picked them because we find them interesting, but there's particular ones that kind of stick out, which are more kind of layered. Ed Gein as well, really odd, and because that was so long ago, or it felt so long ago, it's kind of like you kind of could be a bit more light with your talking about it. But yeah, I don't know. We kind of pick all of them for that reason, that we're one of us was interested in it, at least. Yeah. And we very rarely disagree on cases we're doing. It's usually like Ben's usually set on straight away, knows his next series one straight away. Whereas I'm going to think about this for a bit, and he keeps asking me. I'm like, I'll tell you, Ben. So, yeah, I think later series, Ed Gain, very interesting, and Anders Breivik, probably the two from last series.
Yeah, I really enjoyed kind of the Anders Breivik and the Columbine shooting, kind of like the more recent ones, because I could remember them. I remember watching it on the news, so it was really interesting to me. Like I really enjoyed all of them, but the more modern ones is what I was like I related to weirdly more because I remember watching it.
Yeah, no, I think it's like the Las Vegas one. I wasn't too entrenched in that. I don't I remember it, but not massively. Where Ben went there literally like the day after, or a couple of days after, I think it was. So he had a really kind of vivid memory of that, and he wanted to cover that straight away. I think it's you have people requesting things which mainly the requests seem to be UK based, and people tend to pick ones which are more recent rather than because I think it's just because they have heard about it or you've grown up knowing about it. Like Ian Huntley, for example, I was about 8 or 9 or something, I think it was at the time. So it's like I grew up with certain cases that I was like interested to research more because that's immediately what you think back to. Next series we've got a fair few which are kind of in recent memory to an extent for that purpose, and we do take note of when people request cases and things like that, and see what, and as well you can obviously see what does what on YouTube and see what people are interested in.
I was actually listening to the Roll Malt one today at work, and that was weird because I remember that one really well because I remember being on holiday when that was kind of on the news, and I remember my mum and dad saying, "Oh, we went to there's a picture of him at a pub or something, I believe," and my mum and dad was like, "Oh, we've been to that pub," and it's just kind of it was just weird. Like, growing up knowing about it, there was like this massive manhunt. Yeah, that was so close.
Yeah, that's very, very bizarre, that case. Yeah, I mean, that kind of case, for example, that was interesting as well. I mean, the Patreon ones, we do take requests directly on there, and a lot of those have been very interesting. And it's just the sad thing is, true crime. There's always going to be a case to cover in true crime podcasts, which is not a great state of affairs. No. But there is so many odd and bizarre cases out there. And it makes it especially spooky when it's somewhere nearby or somewhere you've been, or it does kind of make it, you're more morbidly curious about what happened.
Yeah, definitely. I had a friend today at work, because I said you were coming on. She loves true crime and kind of all stories like that. And she was telling me a story about, don't know if you've heard of it, there was a guy called Septic Sam.
No?
I had no idea either, and she was telling me, and it was a guy in Alberta, Canada, and he got found in a septic tank. And if you look at, I'll put up a picture of him now, but there was a kind of a drawing or person made from kind of his remains to see what he would look like.
Okay.
It's haunting. It is horrible. The make of this person it looks like something out of a horror film. But they couldn't identify the body at all. But they found out he was like tortured, sexually kind of assaulted, and just it was vile stuff that was done to him, and he was put in a septic tank, and his body had been all decomposed.
Yeah.
And only recently, literally, I think it was about 44 years later, they found out what his name was. His name's like Gordon Sanderson is his name.
Okay.
And, yeah, it's just mad how they've only found out that now. They still don't know who killed him.
Yeah, that's the horrible thing. There'll be so many of crimes which are bodies just never been found, and people are walking around us. That's the scary thing about true crime. It's like you hear about all these things, and your imagination kind of goes thinking about all these other things that could be happening, and it does get very, very dark. And some of the cold cases that get solved so many years after, it's amazing. But some just the police are absolutely fucked up, and there's no way they're going to be solved. Like John Benet Ramsey, like they kind of.
I was literally about to say that.
Yeah, they completely fucked that. So I'd be very surprised if that ever gets resolved, because of how the police handled it. But a lot of the other cases, there's enough there, and with everything kind of progressing, hopefully a lot more will be solved going forward.
Yeah, I was listening to that John Benet Ramsey one the other day, and when you were saying about kind of how the dad went straight down to the basement, I was like, what? It just baffles you how touching evidence and everything. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
how are they letting it do it?
But we grew up in an era now where there is so much true crime, and it's like if you've grown up in a household, that's the thing. If he is innocent and it's his daughter and he's found a body and it's like, he's picked her up and like he wants to make sure she's like trying to see if she's okay, you completely understand it. But yeah, John Benet Ramsey is such a dividing case in terms of what you believe, because a lot of things completely contradict one another in that case, that's why it's quite interesting. That's what it was quite an interesting one for us to do, because it's very different to our usual, because it was so many different suspects and why they do it. But and lots of comments on that, because I think I just put the top comment as who did it or whatever like that, and every comment is so different and why they've done it, and and with that one we got loads of things like that for why didn't you look into this, and it's like because it's an hour and 10 minutes podcast.
It was a great episode though, because my opinion was changing constantly throughout it. I thought it was like, I thought the dad straight up would have been the kind of main suspect for me, but then you and Ben were like laying on points of other people, and I was like, oh god.
Yeah, originally, because I think producer Dan, I think it was this day, I think producer Dan was quite hungover, and originally we planned for him to kind of like, on the day we planned for him to kind of come up with an idea of who we thought, but I think he misheard one point of what we said for ages, and his brain went a completely different way. So just cut me out. So, but yeah, I watched with particular which apparently I know I kept banging on about a documentary I watched before doing that case, and I was like, that completely changed my opinion. But since then, I've kind of watched more other things about. Which that's the worst thing. If you do a podcast about the case and you watch even more stuff afterwards, it would have been good to mention that. But the brother on Dr. Phil interview and stuff like that is very interesting. But yeah, that documentary I watched was amazing.
Was that on? What was that on?
It's on the things on Discovery Plus. That new thing they're on, which is a really good channel for true crime and other things. But yeah, I'll let you know. I'll find out what it's called. But it was generally the detective on it is just, he was very reliable, and there's no reason why he would be trying to cover anything up. And he was just like adamant that it was an intruder.
Yeah, when you was explaining it just sounded like he came in out of the blue and just kind of like started solving it straight there and then. It was like, why have they not had this before?
No, because he was brought in quite early in, because he just solved a case which was been going on for a while. He just solved it, and it was kind of, that was his kind of speciality, because he just kind of did things very by the book and like looked at the kind of clear evidence. Whereas Boulder Police, it was Boulder, wasn't it? Yeah. It's Boulder. Yeah. Pretty sure it's Boulder. Yeah. Boulder Police had kind of had already said, "Oh no, it must be this," and it's like then they wouldn't change their opinion whatsoever. So certain evidence they just weren't even listening to, and they were kind of weren't testing things out or weren't explaining why things weren't tested, or if they came back negative, they wouldn't say why and stuff like this. So it was all kind of cat and mouse between them. So it was, which doesn't make any sense, but I guess there's a lot of posturing and trying to outdo one another and stuff like that in the police force, I guess. But yeah, interesting one. That was a quite intimidating one to do as well, because we knew a lot of people wanted us to do that. Obviously, because it was the vote, but a lot of people wanted us to do that one, and it was so different to our usual. So we were a bit like, it doesn't follow any of our patterns.
Hard
yeah, are you gonna do more kind of unsolved-y stories in the future or not?
I think because we enjoyed that and it was received well, I think we would consider doing it. As well, I guess because Calfreezy's got his new true crime one as well, and he tends to do more. Yeah, they tend to do more unsolved, but then now they're starting to veer into doing. Because we released ours, I think, an hour before they released theirs on John Bonet, which was very weird, a big coincidence. That's not me saying snidey about they. It's like, it literally was just. It literally was a coincidence. Yeah. I'm throwing shade at Calfreezy. No. Before they even had a video on there, I think they were like 80,000 subs or something. But yeah, they were doing a lot of unsolved stuff. I think we wouldn't be put off by doing it. it's just basically like when you put this series with 12 episodes rather than the 6 before. When you put 12 cases down, you fill them all up. You're like, it's really tricky to pick, and then it's like, if you've got some because you've got surefire winners in terms of names everyone knows, or if you can title it in the right way. So it's like if you're doing one that's a mystery, it can kind of be like, because John Bonet was so well known as a mystery.
Yeah,
it's quite easy to do, but some other ones it's like has to be the right one.
Yeah. Because I watched obviously BuzzFeed Unsolved is like the biggest for that kind of thing, and they did one on Jack the Ripper, and I remember being like, this like it's so good, like this like case and whatnot, because there's like 6 different people that could have done it, and it goes in six different completely different ways, as in like there's 6 completely different suspects, but planning that and getting that out, I was like, that would be so much to do around that one case.
That tends to be an issue with it, is the sheer amount that you feel the case needs to cover it.
Yeah.
Because there's like 10 parters about certain serial killers or certain cases, and you're trying to condense that down into... You might just say, why not do a 2-parter? But because the way we do it is all a case per episode, because then we can fit more into a series, and the way we're doing it...
Right.
Yeah.
It's a better system.
Yeah. I think, like, it's kind of on us to pick what we think's interesting, or the bits that we want to delve into more, or because obviously we listen to a lot of different podcasts about the case, and then we watch a lot of different documentaries, and we're making notes about it, and certain bits we think are particularly interesting. But yeah, some people might be like, you've missed a huge bit out here, but you're gonna get that. And it's like, yeah, the Jack the Ripper, to be completely honest, I haven't really looked. Ben's mentioned about doing them before, and I haven't probably looked into the case.
It's really interesting.
I'll have to look at it. But yeah, I watched a couple of episodes of that series as well. But they're quite like... Weirdly, when we came into doing the true crime thing, we thought our little niche we had was a male duo doing true crime, slightly light-hearted. Which then it turned into a UK version of that. And now, obviously, Chip and Calfreezy doing it.
Yeah.
But
and everything that Calfreezy and Chip have got is like very
mad,
similar to what they've got.
Yeah, but yeah, I do think mine and Ben's humour are very different to theirs.
Definitely.
And their style and everything is very, very different. So I think there's plenty of room for more podcasts. Sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I BuzzFeed Unsolved is kind of what I grew up. Well, I say grew up. Started watching kind of true crime from. That was kind of what started my not obsession, but my liking.
Interest.
Bit of
my interest.
Interest is not. Interest is the word to use. We're always true crime, because liking and like is never the.
Yeah, and it's when I'm at work and I've got people kind of all around me, and I'm just there literally listening to kind of someone's serial killer murdering 10 people kind of brutally, and then there's people all happy as Larry and all around me. I'm just kind of like, yeah, all right, guys. I swear I'm not like, I'm not weird.
Yeah,
but,
it's odd.
It's just interesting.
Yeah,
it's a weird interest.
Yeah, it's odd that I remember it, because I remember when it was quite niche, people liking it and being interested in it, and then it's always been there. People always want to know kind of how and why people are doing such things, and because they can't imagine ever being that way. And then you start seeing like everyday people like Chris Watts or whatever doing something like that. You're like, how it makes it even more frightening, because you're like, literally anyone could do it to anyone with not much thought. They've just done it. So I
watched that Chris Watts one.
I didn't like it. The one on Netflix.
On Netflix.
Didn't like it.
Me and my girlfriend watched it. It was weird.
Netflix are so hit and miss with crime stuff. I watched Don't Fuck with Cats, and I remember coming away from it being like, it was okay, and then you find out that they left out so much detail to do with what the guy actually did when he kills the actual person, and you're like, why have you left this out?
I enjoyed that one, but I haven't looked into it any further than watching that, to be fair.
I came away. Sorry, go on. You go.
No. I was just saying the Chris Watts one. The main thing that annoyed me in the Chris Watts one was mainly when they were showing the text messages. they felt the need for her to misspell things and delete things and correct it, and that would piss me off every time. It showed this, she was texting away, and then she's like, oh no, got that wrong, delete.
Just dramatised.
It's just, it was just trying to make it look normal. It was just like, fucking just say what it said.
Yeah.
I think that's really a non-point, George. Sorry, carry on.
No, it's because with the Don't Fuck with Cats one, I watched it and I was like, that's interesting, that's cool. I came away from that thinking, that's unique. But then you find out that he doesn't just like kill the guy. He basically films himself. It's quite delicate subject, but like cutting off his limbs, and then he severs his head, and he's filmed the whole thing. And then he does certain things to his corpse. But you think, why have you left that out?
Yeah.
Like that's a human. That's just even for their family's sake. You talk about it just to be like, this happened. Not.
But then on the flip side of that,
for sure, it's like, do they want that out there?
Maybe the family intercepted part of it and said you can cover it, but maybe don't go as in depth on it. But it's that's the tricky thing with true crime. It's like, is it more respectful to say every detail, or is it? And also, you worry about copycats. No pun intended, copycats. But then that's a completely different side of it. I mean, I'm sure no one listens to true crime podcasts and make notes of why they got caught and how to get away with it. Maybe they do.
Maybe.
Yeah. Has there been a series or anything recently that you've been watching that you've enjoyed, true crime wise?
There was one recently. What was it called?
I think the best one I've watched recently was Night Stalker. I've really enjoyed that.
That was good. I was enjoying watching Son of Sam one. I haven't finished it yet, but that was quite good.
I enjoyed the first couple of episodes.
I've only watched the first couple.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's great. It's a great show. The very end is good.
Okay.
Because it kind of goes back to something that they talk about, but it just it's a bit long-winded for what it actually is. I think
that's the thing I do find is they do tend to milk, like making a murderer is the worst for it. They just milk everything, go over the same thing again and again and again, and make 10 episodes out of it. It's like that could have been 6 episodes and it would have been a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Favorite one, as in ever, which is not your question you asked me, but I can't remember the one I watched recently. But is the Jinx very good?
What's this?
It's follows Robert? Basically, it's one of the richest families in New York, and one of the sons. There's Ryan Gosling was in the film, playing him in the film, and then this guy approached the director of the film and said, "You got my story wrong. Do you want to do a documentary on it?" Robert Durst, that's the one. That's very good. And the other one, which is on Netflix, is I really like The Staircase.
Oh yeah, you see, I keep seeing that whenever I go on Netflix. It's one of the ones that's recommended, and I sit there and I'm like, I do want to watch that.
It spans over, like, as in they film with him straight away after this thing happens, and then they film with him again after a certain amount of time, and it's always the lawyers that are really good in it. But it's such a bizarre case, which
I need to.
Yeah,
now you've said it. Now,
highly recommend it. Let me know, George.
That's on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's interesting what you say about the lawyers, because I remember in Making a Murderer, the first season of that, I was hooked on it because of the lawyers.
Yeah.
I was like, these guys are great. I was like, these guys are really good. They're presenting like a decent case, and like it got you intrigued because you were like, these guys know what they're talking about. And
Definitely.
they might actually get this guy some justice.
There's a good podcast though, which what's it called? I think it might be called Discounting a Murderer. It's basically they point out all the things that the documentary doesn't mention.
Right.
And like you basically go, okay, well he probably did do it. It's
really?
like, yeah, I think it's Discounting a Murderer. But basically, there's lots. Obviously, that's very biased towards that case, isn't it? And they're trying to.
Yeah.
But there's things where he did ram off this woman in the road and threaten her with a gun. He did do a lot of stuff which is very questionable. But yeah, I think it's Discounting a Murderer. But that's worth a listen to. But then even with that, like you said, with the lawyers in the later series,
Zellner,
female, Catherine Zellner,
Yeah.
She's great as well, terrifying. But she's amazing. It's always the lawyers, and there's great lawyers in The Staircase. Really good lawyers.
I'm going to give that a watch. I might watch that tonight actually, as I'm
It's-
kind of now in the mood for
It's
all
quite,
this.
it's quite long, but I think you both will like it. It's definitely.
Is it multiple episodes or is it all one?
It's multiple
8 or
episodes.
10 or something.
Yeah, so it's quite a sesh, but obviously it won't go. But it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think, because I don't know what I think at the end of it, which is I always like it.
That's good though.
Yeah,
I like the
That's
sound
always
that you
good.
don't know.
Yeah. Would that be something? Would that be one that you'd cover on your podcast or?
Yeah, it might be a bit too mainstream, or might be a bit too
I think
covered,
just
or-
because it's always tricky when there's if it's a day of crime or one murder, it's often hard. But with that one is a timeline wise is an absolute minefield in terms of
True.
where the story goes for the staircase. So I don't know. I think I probably wouldn't be too keen to do it just because I like that one on the thing so much. I don't think you have to kind of be, putting his face on the thumbnail. You're probably not going to get as much traffic as well. I think eventually when we're doing cases when people aren't even looking at the cases and just listening to it, maybe. But I think that it's done so well on that, I probably would steer clear. And as well, all the kind of footage and research probably was done primarily from that documentary. So you don't really want to be just nicking things from it.
No. I
Yeah.
think there is a way to, like, I remember, True Geordie is like, that's like my guy when it comes to podcasts and whatnot. And what he does is he does the podcast about the documentary itself
Yeah.
rather than the crime. So, like, obviously they talk about the crime and they give their opinions, but they're doing it solely based off what they've seen in the documentary.
Yeah. He did the McCann one, didn't he?
Yeah, he did the McCann
Yeah.
one, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
So there is.
I thought that was a shit show, by the way.
It wasn't
Well,
a fun show to watch. I didn't.
The
think
Madeleine
it was.
McCann one.
Yeah, again, it's when there's too many moving parts and like that. There's so many theories you can delve into.
Yeah.
I always find that the really mainstream ones, I'm always like in two minds of whether or not I actually want to watch, and
Cover
it's
it.
more like the kind of niche ones.
I
You're
feel like
okay.
all you had to do was watch the first episode though on that, and then the rest was pointless.
Again, they just spread it out so
Yeah.
thinly to kind of get between each episode, and that's the thing with the Staircase. I actually felt like you're seeing new stuff each time. The Jinx definitely. The Jinx is done by HBO, so it is done in a very good way. But the Jinx, there's not been a better ending to a true crime documentary than the Jinx, and you don't see it coming.
The Jinx. I will forget about the Jinx. I'm just going to put a note on my phone quickly.
I've got them as tabs open at the moment.
It does have only thing I would say, which is a very personal preference, is I don't like true crime documentaries when there's reenactments by actors. For some reason, it immediately makes me like, nah. But with that, you kind of just have to stomach it a little bit. They're not too heavy on it, but the story itself and the way it's told is just insane.
There was one show, I know it's a little bit different than kind of murdering type of shows, but Abducted in Plain Sight. Did you ever watch that?
That's
So
amazing.
That was fucking weird.
That's on my list. I need to watch that as well. I see it and I'm like, that looks like what? Like, it's mental. I need.
Pretty
to
sure that was
watch as
memed
well.
up to hell, wasn't it, afterwards? 'Cause
Oh,
so much
massively.
things.
Oh, was
Yeah.
it?
Me and my mates were watching it. We literally got in kind of from going shopping, and we were just going on Netflix, and we was like, "Oh, let's watch that." Everyone's raving about it, and we were sat there like, "What the fuck?" Like it was just
The parents
it's
were
weird.
the most inept parents you'll ever see. Yeah, I'd be actually quite tempted to watch that again, to be fair, because that was, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really baffling. The title of that doesn't do it justice, really. But yeah, there's another one called the Voyeur on Netflix with this guy who owned a hotel, and he basically in the roof of the hotel, he basically had holes in each room, which he used to kind of like watch people through the holes of this hotel he owned, and then he caught I think he caught someone trying to murder someone and things like that, and he watched all these things, and he basically kind of admitted all these stuff. But that's really interesting as well. And
sounds great.
It's actually got the guy being interviewed and his wife, and then things start coming out about the story, and he's starting to get a lot of threats and stuff like that. But that's really interesting. But again, that is a crime, but it's kind of one of those ones that's kind of like you wouldn't cover that because that's not that. But that's another recommendation. I think it's called The Voyeur. just
We've
a
got some
weird.
good watching to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure it now.
Yeah, I was struggling to watch stuff. I've been rewatching a whole lot of Marvel since like timeline, so I'm gonna be
different.
switching it up.
Slightly different genres, mate.
Yeah, I've been watching
Well,
Clarkson,
yeah, I know.
Clarkson Farming. So I mean,
Oh,
There you go.
brilliant show.
actually,
I've-
is. I
I've
hate
really
Clarkson
enjoyed
with
that.
passion, but I actually enjoyed that show, which was
Everyone's been saying that. Everyone's been saying that they couldn't stand him and didn't like him, but then this show's kind of like changed their mind a little bit.
yeah. I think yeah, we're not going to get into Jeremy Clarkson, but yeah, it was a good watch.
Yeah.
Touching briefly on the documentary side of things, I'm waiting for someone to make a documentary about like Airbnbs and the secrets behind them in America, because some of them are mad. Like in America specifically, not in the UK, but you've heard stories about like couples just being like renting an Airbnb, but then like walking in like the roofs, or hearing like people moving in the walls next door, and they're kind of like,
fuck.
this shouldn't be a thing. And then you find out that they call the police and that, and there's essentially like a room next to it where they just sit and watch people live in their
Wow.
Airbnbs.
How isn't that a thing already?
I don't know, but it should be. I saw it
There you
like
go.
a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and I was like, why am I only hearing about this? Like,
What did you see it on?
Well, I saw it on YouTube. Like this guy called Shane Dawson, who, for the record, not a fan of,
Yeah.
but he did a like a documentary series style thing about it, and he only touched on it for like 15 minutes, and he's talking about how like in these Airbnbs they've got like little objects with how cameras in them, plus then they've got
Wow.
numerous stories about people essentially walking upstairs when they're meant to be alone, and it's
Yeah.
just like the intrusions.
Doesn't
mad.
surprise me whatsoever, though. That is, I mean, Airbnbs, you literally just sign up and then no one's going to check your house. Like,
Mate.
it's all a trust thing, isn't it? And people will always abuse those things. But yeah, that's interesting. That's mad.
That sounds fucking weird.
Yeah.
That might be something to proper look into, though. I quite like that. Sounds fucking scary.
Could do an episode on it. Hey, maybe that's it. Maybe I'll do an episode on it. Here we are.
So going back to kind of the podcast in general, is there any episodes coming up that you really want to cover, or any stories that you really want to cover that you haven't already yet recorded either?
Well, we haven't recorded any Series 4 yet. So we've already got a list of 12 that we've already got written down. So what case that isn't on that I do want to do in the future, which isn't on that, but I don't. Ben's fine with kind of revealing things, and I'm like, nah, we don't reveal
Keep it
things.
secret.
Sure.
But yeah, there's a few. I think it's one of those things where certain things just kind of pique your interest at random times, and like even kind of not modern day stories, but things that happened in the news recently, or about that policeman who was dragged behind that car. I don't know if I remember the name.
I
That
know
was-
his sister.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, I'm good friends with his sister, and I remember seeing that on the news and being like, "Fuck, that was close to home. That was really fucking
I
weird."
bet it was, yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, it was
but
horrible.
We kind of felt that was too recent, and we didn't know couldn't really find all the ins and outs, and you didn't want to say something wrong about it. So yeah, that's a difficulty. And as well, that's the thing is like every case will be close to home for someone. And we found out with lots of things we posted. Or I grew up in Soham, or I grew up in that area, or my mum was. But loads of people say that their parents, on the Yorkshire Ripple one, loads of comments from people who in that area who parents were affected, or they're still going to affect the general area now. Like people talk about it, so that's always a thing you kind of have to have slightly in the back of your mind when you're trying to be funny. Is those kind of things can be very upsetting to people as well.
Yeah. No, mad. Well, I'm looking forward to the next series. Do you know? Have you kind of given a date when it's coming out, or
We haven't.
just whenever?
Yeah, it's basically I'm getting married next weekend, so we have.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I had stag do last weekend. Married,
that was that.
not this week, next weekend. So it's kind of like we're having a bit of time out just to go. Well, we will always have time out between series anyway, but I think we're having a slightly longer one. But it's not too long. As well, like with all YouTube, the more thorough you are in terms of like regular posting, the better. But we've kind of found with ours, it's like people, touch wood, have been like when you come back, and they get excited when we come back, and then we're there for a while, then we go away, and then come back. It's not I think if we were there constantly every week posting, you kind of get a bit like you kind of not run out of steam, but people will go, oh, okay, that's there. But it's more of an event if you go away and come back. So we quite like the idea of going away and coming back. So yeah, it's not too long away, but we're going to start filming like this month. But we want to get ahead of ourselves with edits. Because for filming them, footage-wise, we probably end up about 2 hours worth of footage each episode, and then you cut that down to an hour and 5, and you do all these stupid little edits, which take far too long for little jokes. And then, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We were actually going to mug off doing the visual side of things, and just do audio. But then because the YouTube kind of picked up, we went from like 6,000 subs to 21 last series. Yeah, which nice. We were if we stayed like 6, we'd probably be like the visuals just too much work for the like. So we just do audio because with audio you can be reading your laptop and not being conscious about the fact you're just reading the whole time and stuff like that. Which I think that's the reason why a lot of true crime people don't do visual, because it's a lot of kind of reading notes and kind of making sure you're getting things right. And that's always kind of the pressure there. So yeah. I went on a tangent there. So we were like, oh, we can't just mug that off. So we are getting some additional support for the edits going forward, just because it is like every week getting that done by a certain time and has to go through this. And then Ben watches it all and makes notes for all the pictures that need to be on it. And then go through, and I have a page of 100 pictures, which I'm then downloading and then popping on all the time. It's very thorough. And we all have full-time jobs as well. So it's like you mix all that in, and it's just like currently, like for example now, running a business, selling a house, buying a house, getting married, whilst doing the podcast, whilst doing this. That's just too long. Yeah. So yeah, so we're quite enjoying a bit of a break.
Yeah, I can fully relate to that. Fair enough. Don't blame you. Well, we've got one question left, and it's kind of something that's only recently happened that we're going to start getting guests to give us. Is we've got a little playlist on Spotify called the Lazy Days playlist, and every week we're giving a song each to put in this playlist that we're just really enjoying at the moment, and then we're going to get our guests to give us a song to put in the playlist, one that they are enjoying at the moment or one that they really just love. So what song would you like to put in the playlist?
Give me 1 second, because I'm going to see what I've been playing recently.
This is always a hard thing. We've done questions like music before, and trying to think of a song off the top of your head.
Oh, you have to go on your Spotify.
It's hard.
Yeah, you've got to find something.
What's the kind of I know you're going to say any song's good, but what's the kind of vibe that's currently in there?
Currently, we've got some Doja Cat, Drake, J. Cole, and someone called Nux, who I don't actually know, but it seems to be quite rappy R&B vibes.
I'm going to go with an older song.
Nice.
Go with Weezer, Say It Isn't So. Or Say It Ain't So.
Great song.
I love that song.
Brilliant song.
That kind of came to mind. But yeah, the other one, yeah. I've also say Phoebe Bridgers because I love her, but I'll go with Weezer.
No, that's a
nice,
great ending. Yeah, brilliant
fits
song.
Right in with Doja Cat.
Yeah, gonna go from that to Weezer. Love it.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. It's why I wanted to do it though, because it's gonna be such a random playlist.
It's a mix of personality.
Yeah,
it's gonna be great.
Like
if you just want to listen to music, bang it on. Like you can have a whole mix of stuff on there. It's gonna be great. So everyone, stay tuned. Follow the playlist on Spotify and just enjoy it. But anyway, yeah. Once again, Tom, thanks for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you for that.
We'll leave all your links below in the description and kind of give you as much a shout out as we possibly can. Even though it probably won't do much because we're tiny. But
no, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. And let me know what you think of those documentaries, because I'd be keen to hear your theories. I want a 10-page essay from each of you about who done it, please.
God. Don't have time for that. All right, brilliant. Yeah, we'll let you know. And yeah, thank you again. Right, peace out, guys. Bye.